A shocking confession on live podcast shatters BTS's quiet world. Taehyung reveals Jungkook's secret marriage and the dark past behind it. He married her, knowing what she did. I warned him. I told him she'd destroy everything. The words hit like a thunderclap, raw, unexpected, impossible to swallow. Taehyung's voice, usually warm and laced with playful mischief, now trembled with rage barely held back. The air inside the dimly lit studio crackled with tension. The podcast producer froze mid-sip of his coffee. A glass somewhere in the control room shattered. Across from Taehyung, the host blinked rapidly, unsure whether to laugh, panic, or cut the recording. Cameras rolled. Microphones were live. Streaming platforms lit up in real time, with spikes of viewership like detonations on a digital battlefield. Taehyung leaned forward, elbows on the edge of the desk, face a mask of betrayal. His fingers drummed restlessly. Beneath the desk, one leg bounced with nervous energy. He thinks keeping it a secret made him noble, Taehyung muttered, as if speaking only to himself. As if hiding it from all of us, from Army, from the world, was for our own good. He glanced up. But it wasn't. It was for her. And now look what she's done. Silence. Then chaos. Chat comments flooded the screen like a digital storm. Is he serious? Who did Jungkook marry? OMG. What is happening? I knew something was off last year. 3 hours before the explosion on the podcast, Taehyung had stood alone on the rooftop of his apartment in Hanam-dong, the Seoul skyline stretching wide and glittering beneath him. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. He didn't check it. He already knew what it was. The photo. The same one sent from an unknown number for 3 days straight now. A woman, alone, dressed in white. In the background, Jungkook's unmistakable shoulder tattoo, barely hidden by a black silk shirt. The image was cropped tight. Too tight. Just enough to feel intimate. Just enough to confirm the worst. Taehyung crushed the phone in his palm until his fingers ached. He hadn't spoken to Jungkook in weeks. Not since the night the fight happened, the real fight. Not the playful bickering Army adored, but the brutal, real shouting match behind closed doors after the last world tour. The one that ended with Jungkook storming out and Taehyung staring at the shattered mirror with blood dripping from his hand. Now, under studio lights and cold scrutiny, Taehyung said it out loud for the first time. She knew what she was doing. She planned it. She got into his life slowly, pretending to be harmless. But I knew. I felt it. His voice cracked just slightly. And he chose her anyway, over all of us. The podcast host, a veteran of media scandals and late-night confessions, cleared her throat carefully. Taehyung, are you saying Jungkook is married? Taehyung didn't blink. Yes. The impact of that word vibrated through the room like an aftershock. Even the humming of studio equipment seemed to fall silent. In the hallway outside, someone ran. Hard-soled shoes pounding down linoleum. A producer shouted. Phones rang. The world outside the studio was waking up to the story, and it was already on fire. Inside, Taehyung sat back in his chair. His pulse thundered in his ears, but his eyes were clear now. Steady. The rage had quieted into something colder, more focused. I told him she was dangerous. I told him what I found. The things she erased. Her name isn't even real. The host leaned forward, her curiosity battling with professional restraint. And what is her real name? Taehyung. He shook his head. That's not mine to say. Not yet. But when the truth comes out, when people see what she really is, he's going to lose everything. Far away, in a private villa outside Jeju, Jungkook stood barefoot on the hardwood floor of a minimalist kitchen. The walls around him hummed with peace. Quiet, curated, serenity. Outside, wind stirred the grass. Inside, a cup of tea steamed untouched on the counter. His phone, abandoned on the table, buzzed with a fury that meant only one thing. The secret was out. From the hallway, a soft voice called, "Is everything okay?" Jungkook closed his eyes. Nothing was okay. Not anymore. He's lying, Jungkook whispered. His voice barely carried over the silence. But it was enough. The words didn't come out with fury. They came out hollow like a man speaking to ghosts. He stood frozen in front of the TV, the news ticker at the bottom of the screen looping endlessly. Kim Taehyung breaks silence on podcast. Claims Jeon Jungkook is secretly married, fans in uproar. His hands clenched into fists. The bones cracked softly under the pressure. Every network, every social feed, every digital corner of the planet buzzed with his name, twisted with suspicion and betrayal. Behind him, she stepped into the room. The woman Taehyung had warned him about, the one now being dissected by millions without even being named. "Did you think he'd keep quiet forever?" she asked, voice smooth, controlled, like always. Jungkook turned to her slowly. He said he wouldn't. His eyes searched hers. He promised. Her lips barely curved. Promises are for people without microphones. He stared at her, really stared, like seeing her for the first time again. Her long black hair fell like ink over her shoulders. Her eyes, cold and unreadable, glinted under the ceiling lights. She wasn't afraid. She never was. That had once felt like strength. Now, it felt like danger. In Seoul, Taehyung stood in the BTS dorm's old rehearsal room, alone. The mirrors reflected him back over and over again, tired, furious, shaken but unwilling to break. Namjoon burst through the door, breathless, still wearing his gym clothes. "Are you out of your mind, Tae?" Taehyung didn't look away from the mirror. "You think I wanted to say it? You think I wanted the world to know like that?" "You told the world. On a podcast. I tried everything else," Taehyung growled. "He left us, June. He walked away and took her with him. He lied to you, to me, to everyone." Namjoon ran a hand through his hair. "That's not the same as outing him to millions of people. You know what you did." "I know exactly what I did," Taehyung said, spinning around. His eyes burned, voice rising, "because no one listened when I said she wasn't who she pretended to be. And now, we're here. You're mad at me because I told the truth? Why aren't you asking why he lied in the first place?" Namjoon flinched. His silence was louder than any argument. Across the city, in an upscale hotel room where staff had been paid to look away, Yoongi sat on the floor, watching the podcast clip again and again. His face was unreadable. His mind wasn't. He remembered the dinner, the last one they had all together. Jungkook had barely touched his food. Taehyung hadn't said a word, but she had laughed at something Hoseok said. The kind of laugh that sounded rehearsed. Too perfect. Too sweet. Yoongi had known, even then, deep in his gut, that something was wrong. In the hotel room, Jimin barged in without knocking. His face was white. "It's not just a podcast anymore. Dispatch says they're releasing the wedding photo tomorrow." Yoongi's head snapped up. "What photo?" "They have it, Hyung. The one from Jeju. The rings. The vows. Everything. The chapel. It's real. It's all real." Yoongi stared at the screen. "Then it's too late." Back in Jeju, Jungkook threw his phone against the wall. It shattered on impact. His wife didn't flinch. "You think this is going to end with just backlash?" she asked, stepping closer. "You know your fans. They don't just forget. They tear. They dig. And they'll find everything you tried to hide." He looked at her, jaw tight. "Are you enjoying this?" "No." She traced her fingers along the edge of the kitchen island. "But I did warn you. Taehyung was never going to stay quiet forever. Not with the things he knows." Jungkook's face twisted. "He doesn't know anything. He thinks he does, but..." "But?" she interrupted. "Do you want to tell me what he found in my past? Or should I guess?" He was silent. That silence was an answer. She stepped closer. "You still haven't told me what he found, have you?" "No," he admitted, "because I didn't want to believe it. And now?" His voice broke. "Now I'm not sure what's real anymore." In the rehearsal room, Taehyung sat on the floor, surrounded by echoes of their past. Memories bled into the present. Jungkook's laugh, late-night dance battles, tears after performances, promises whispered over ramen and soju. And somewhere in the middle of it all, her smile sharp, poisonous, cut through everything. Taehyung buried his face in his hands. He didn't do it to destroy Jungkook. He did it because no one else would stop her. That night, a trending hashtag overtook every platform. Jungkook married Taehyung. She destroyed BTS. And when the morning came, Dispatch released the photo. The chapel, the white dress, Jungkook in a suit, her hand in his, the look on his face haunted, unsure, already broken. The world didn't react with celebration. It reacted with chaos. Fan sites crashed, threats flew, old clips resurfaced. Every moment was re-examined with suspicion. Every lyric, every look, every time Taehyung hesitated in interviews, it was all recast in a new, darker light. Jungkook didn't leave the villa for days. Taehyung didn't sleep. And in the silence between their war of truths, something more dangerous stirred. Because the woman at the center of it all wasn't hiding anymore. She had already started playing her next move. The moment the photo dropped, the internet fractured. No longer speculation. No longer rumor the wedding was real. The kiss was real. The ring, silver and discreet on Jungkook's finger, caught in the light like a cursed truth. By dawn, entire fan forums had turned into battlegrounds. Some cried betrayal, others defense. But all eyes turned to the woman no one knew, and suddenly everyone needed to. Her name surfaced in digital whispers, buried in years of deleted accounts and changed identities. A name that Taehyung had once scrawled in his journal with trembling hands. A name that had no place in their world, Han Seo-jin. The name was like poison to him. In the early morning chill, Taehyung stood outside the Hybe building. A hoodie pulled over his head, sunglasses covering bloodshot eyes. He hadn't slept. Not really. The wind bit through his clothes as Hoseok joined him, stepping out from a black van with his face low beneath a cap. "You shouldn't be here," Hoseok muttered, voice tight. Taehyung didn't move. Neither should she. Hoseok sighed, watching him for a long beat. "Do you know what you've started? I know what I ended." Inside, the meeting room was already buzzing. Jin, back from his military discharge, stood at the head of the table with arms crossed. He looked furious, older than his age, like someone who'd seen too much too soon. Namjoon paced. Jimin sat still, eyes red, staring at nothing. Yoongi scrolled through his phone but wasn't really reading. "He's not answering any of us," Jin snapped. "Not even the company. He's in complete lockdown." "Of course he is," Jimin said, his voice hoarse. "The entire world just found out he's been lying for 2 years." "We found out 2 years ago," Yoongi murmured. "We just didn't say anything." Namjoon's hands clenched into fists. "That was our mistake." The door slammed open, and Taehyung walked in. The air dropped. No one moved. Until Jin broke the silence. "You should have told us before you told the world." Taehyung looked at him. "I tried. Over and over." "Not like that." "What would have changed?" Taehyung's voice cracked. "You would have sat him down, talked to him again, begged him to leave her?" "He won't, because she has something on him, something deep. I saw it in his eyes the night I followed her." That brought everyone still. Yoongi finally looked up. "You followed her?" Taehyung nodded. 2 months ago, Jungkook was in Japan for a schedule. She stayed in Seoul, said she was sick. His jaw tensed. "I followed her to a warehouse in Mappo. She met someone. A man. I took photos." Namjoon's voice was sharp. "Why didn't you bring them to us then?" "Because I thought I could handle it alone. I thought," Taehyung faltered. "I thought if I had proof, I could show him, snap him out of it." "And did you?" Jimin asked quietly. Taehyung laughed bitterly. "He tore the photos up in front of me, called me paranoid, told me she was just handling family matters." "Family, my ass." She was handing over a flash drive. Cash exchanged hands. The room went quiet again. Yoongi leaned forward, finally focused. "Do you still have the copies?" "I emailed them to myself. If she thinks deleting one camera roll ends me, she doesn't know who she's playing with." Meanwhile, across the sea in Jeju, Jungkook sat in the home studio he'd built for himself and no longer used. The silence was suffocating. Not even music wanted to play anymore. Han Seo-jin leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. She wore his hoodie-like armor, her long hair tucked behind one ear. There wasn't an ounce of fear in her gaze. "Are you going to talk to them?" she asked softly. "No." "You should. They don't want to hear from me. Not anymore." She stepped inside. "You think they won't forgive you? That this ends you?" Jungkook turned to her slowly. His eyes were swollen, tired, hollowed out. "You don't get it. I lied to them. All of them. My brothers, my fans, the company, for you. And now," she smiled, subtle, haunting. "Now you see what loyalty costs." He flinched. "There's something you need to tell me," she said, walking closer. What else did Taehyung find? Jungkook hesitated. He mentioned something, she said, voice darkening. A man, a meeting, a warehouse. He's bluffing, isn't he? I don't know, Jungkook muttered. Maybe. You do know. Her voice sharpened like a knife. Did he see Kang Hyun? The name hit like a gunshot. Jungkook stood abruptly. You told me that was over. It was until you let your friend turn this into a public execution. What does Kang Hyun have on you? She tilted her head, gaze unreadable. Are you asking because you care, or because you're finally afraid of me? Silence. Then she smiled again, too calm. It doesn't matter. If Taehyung wants to play this game, let's play it. But make no mistake, Jungkook. When I go down, I don't go alone. At Hybe, Taehyung clicked through the photos on a monitor. The warehouse. The man. The handoff. She's laundering money through shell companies registered under fake identities. I traced 2 of them, one to Tokyo, one to Busan. She's using Jungkook's name as cover on at least one of the transfers. Yoongi looked up sharply. That's criminal. Taehyung nodded. She's got him trapped. If he walks away now, she burns him. If he stays, she drains him. Namjoon slammed a fist into the table. Then we need to protect him. Whether he wants it or not, Jimin whispered. Do you think he knows? Taehyung closed his eyes. He knows. He just can't accept it. That night, Jungkook stood alone on the beach, waves crashing under moonlight. His bare feet sank into the cold, wet sand. The sky stretched endlessly above him, uncaring. He pulled the silver ring from his finger and stared at it. The ocean wind howled in his ears. Her voice echoed behind him. Her warnings, her threats, her lies. His thumb trembled, and then he threw the ring into the sea. He didn't watch it fall. He didn't want to. Behind him, footsteps approached in the sand. He turned, breath-catching. It was Jimin. They stared at each other, saying nothing, until Jimin stepped closer and whispered, brokenly, come home. You think you can just come here and say that? Jungkook's voice cracked open the silence between them. Salt from the ocean hung in the air, bitter on his tongue, sharp in his throat. The moonlight caught the shine of his tears before he could hide them. Jimin didn't back down. He stood steady, arms loose at his sides, wind sweeping his hair back. Yes, he said quietly, because someone has to say it, and you sure as hell won't. Jungkook laughed, dry, broken. You don't know what I've been through, don't I? Jimin stepped closer, voice rising. I watched you disappear piece by piece. You ghosted rehearsals, canceled meetings, stopped writing music, and we let you because we thought maybe he just needs time. But now we know. You weren't just fading, you were hiding. Jungkook's fists clenched. I wasn't hiding. Then what do you call this? Jimin gestured around at the villa, the empty stretch of sand, the ocean swallowing secrets. This exile? This lie? You didn't just lie to the fans, Jungkook. You lied to us. To me. His voice cracked. I would have protected you. I still would. But I can't protect what you won't admit. Jungkook turned away, his breath ragged. She was supposed to be my sanctuary, he said, almost to himself. When everything felt too loud, when the spotlight burned, she made it quiet. She looked at me like I was just a person. Jimin's voice softened, but didn't lose its edge. No, she looked at you like a possession, and you mistook that for peace. Jungkook dropped to his knees on the sand, covering his face with both hands. His shoulders shook, and the raw sound that came from him wasn't a sob, but something deeper and unraveling. Jimin crouched beside him. Young, he said, voice trembling, please, just come back. But Jungkook shook his head. You don't understand. If I leave her now, she'll ruin everything. She'll leak the footage, the documents. She has recordings, my bank info. Stuff I told her in confidence, things that could get the company investigated. Jimin's breath caught. She blackmailed you? Jungkook didn't answer. He didn't have to. Back in Seoul, the storm was growing. Taehyung sat in the conference room, pacing like a caged lion. The photos weren't enough. The company wanted hard evidence, something indisputable, something actionable. Yoongi leaned against the wall, eyes dark with calculation. Then we give them the full file, everything, including the ledger you found. They'll bury it, Taehyung muttered. Hybe will protect him before they admit one of their own was compromised. Then we don't give it to Hybe, Yoongi said. We give it to someone who has nothing to lose. Taehyung stopped pacing. Who? Yoongi tapped his phone. I have a journalist friend in dispatch. The one who exposed the Daehan scandal 2 years ago. She's relentless. You trust her? No, Yoongi said flatly. But I trust her ambition. A beat passed. Do it, Taehyung said. Meanwhile, in the villa, Han Seojin stood on the phone, pacing barefoot across the marble floor. I told you, she hissed into the line. If you let those files surface, it won't just destroy him, it'll link you. Pause. I don't care what Taehyung has. He doesn't know the full picture. He only sees what I let him see. Another pause. Her fingers tightened around the phone. I want the ledger erased. The offshore accounts cleaned. And if that reporter reaches out to you, you do not respond. I'll handle her. She ended the call with a swipe, then stood still, her reflection shimmering in the floor-to-ceiling windows. Behind her, Jungkook walked in quietly. His eyes were unreadable. Who was that? He asked. She turned slowly. No one you need to worry about. I heard my name. Her smile was immediate, practiced. Just a precaution. Everything's fine. He didn't move. She stepped closer, arms outstretched, but he stepped back. Don't, he said quietly. Her expression froze for just a second. Then, don't what? Don't pretend like you haven't trapped me. Her voice went flat. I saved you. No, you used me. You saw a broken man and thought he'll do anything to feel whole again. I gave you a home. You built it on lies. She reached for him again, but he was already gone, walking past her, toward the studio, toward the memory of the music he'd stopped making. The next morning, a new article dropped. Not from Dispatch. From a rogue blog site known for whistleblower leaks. Title: Jeon Jungkook's wife linked to laundering scandal and identity fraud. Is this the end of BTS's innocence? Screenshots, transaction records, blurred faces, redacted names. Enough truth to start a fire. Social media exploded. Comments poured in. Protect Jungkook. She manipulated him. Taehyung was right. Hybe must respond. And then came the statement. Hybe Entertainment, under pressure, posted a short release. We are currently investigating claims involving a third party connected to BTS member Jeon Jungkook. At this time, we ask for privacy and patience as we address the situation. But patience was already gone. At the same time, back at the BTS dorm, the 6 of them gathered for the first time in over a year. The silence was unbearable. Taehyung stood at the window. Jin sat with arms folded. Hoseok looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. Jimin's voice broke the silence. He's coming. They all looked up. Taehyung turned, heart racing. The front door opened, and there he was, Jungkook. Hair longer, eyes darker, face unreadable. No one moved. He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. Taehyung stared at him. Lips parted. Jungkook's voice cracked. But I'm ready now to fix this. And in the charged, fragile silence that followed, no one noticed the phone buzzing in Taehyung's pocket. An unknown number. A message. You think this is over. But you don't know what she's really after. The room was a time bomb. Jungkook stood in the doorway like a ghost returned from war, muddy-eyed, hollowed out, holding nothing but regret. His words hung in the air like smoke. I'm ready to fix this. No one moved at first. The silence wasn't relief. It was fury, simmering just beneath the surface. Taehyung's jaw was tight, his arms crossed, eyes burning a hole straight through Jungkook's soul. Jin broke it first. Fix this? He repeated, voice flat and incredulous. You're a little late for that, don't you think? Jungkook swallowed. I didn't know it would go this far. Taehyung finally spoke. You didn't care it would go this far until it got uncomfortable for you. Jungkook stepped forward. That's not fair. No, Taehyung snapped. I told you who she was. I begged you to listen. You shut the door in my face. I was trying to protect. Protect who, Jungkook? Taehyung roared. Us? The group? Yourself? No, you were protecting her, and she's the one who set this fire. Jimin stood between them like a wall of glass, fragile but holding. Stop, Please. But it was Yoongi who walked over and handed Jungkook a tablet. Read it, he said. Jungkook hesitated, eyes flicking to the others. Then he took the device and scrolled. Transaction records. Names he didn't recognize. A shell company in Manila. Another in Tokyo. All funneled through a private account registered in his name. He blinked rapidly. No, I didn't. She used your identity, Yoongi said calmly, almost coldly. She set you up, slowly, over time, and she was careful, but not careful enough. I don't understand how she built it like a trap, Jimin whispered. So when she walked away, you'd fall right into it, and the world would think you were in on it. Jungkook looked sick. She said she'd protect me. From what? Taehyung shot back. From us? From the truth? Jungkook's knees gave out, and he sank onto the couch, head in his hands. What have I done? Jin's voice was steel. You trusted the wrong person. We all have. But what matters now is what you do next. Namjoon, who'd been silent until then, finally leaned forward. His gaze was cutting. Do you have anything she left behind? A drive? A document? A backup phone? Anything she might have used to move money or store information? Jungkook thought. She kept a box. In the studio. Said it was her music notes, but she never let me open it. Where is it now? In the villa. Behind the panel in the wall. Yoongi was already texting someone. I'll send someone we trust to retrieve it. No, Jungkook said, standing. I'll go myself. You think she'll let you back in? I don't think she ever really let me leave. That night, Jungkook returned to Jeju under a full moon and a storm warning. The air was heavy, thick with unsaid things. He drove with the windows down, like he needed the wind to keep him breathing. The villa was too quiet. The lights off. He stepped inside, calling her name. Seo-jin? No answer. The studio door creaked open. He walked in slowly, every step like approaching a grave. The panel was still there. He pulled it back. The box was inside. Metal. Locked. No key in sight. He carried it to the table and pried it open with a flathead from the tools. It snapped. Inside, hard drives. 3. A black leather notebook. A single photograph. Jungkook and Seo-jin on their wedding day. But something was wrong. In the corner, almost invisible, was the edge of another figure. A man in the background. The same man from the Mappo warehouse. Jungkook stared, heart thundering. He flipped open the notebook. Not lyrics. Codes. Names. Symbols. Transactions. Coordinates. And a single phrase written in red ink on the last page. If you're reading this, I'm already dead, or you're already mine. His blood went cold. He stood abruptly. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. A message. You opened the box. Now you'll know why it was sealed. Another message followed. A photo of the BTS dorm. A window. A figure watching from across the street. Jungkook's breath caught. He called Taehyung. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. The third call went through. Taehyung's voice, rushed, quiet. Jungkook? Get out. Now. What? She's not in Jeju. She's in Seoul. A pause. Then, she's already inside. The line went dead. And Jungkook knew whatever this was, it had just started becoming something darker, something bigger, something that wasn't about marriage or betrayal or broken friendships anymore. This was a war. And the woman he married was no longer just a threat. She was the hunter. The dorm was too quiet. That kind of quiet that didn't belong to nightfall but to danger. Taehyung stepped slowly into the hallway, barefoot, his heart pounding so loud he could hear the blood rush in his ears. The lights were out, but a sliver of white-blue glow leaked from the kitchen. The microwave, maybe. Or someone's phone. But no one was supposed to be awake. He had just ended the call with Jungkook. His hand still trembled from gripping the phone so tightly. She's not in Jeju. She's in Seoul. She's already inside. The words played over and over again like a siren in his mind. He reached for the umbrella propped by the shoe rack. Cheap plastic. Light but heavy enough to do something if he had to. Hyung? Jimin's voice came from the stairs above, low and hoarse. Taehyung looked up, signaling him with a finger to be silent. Jimin nodded and descended one step at a time. Where's Yoongi? Taehyung whispered. Sleeping. I think. They both moved together toward the kitchen. Taehyung's grip on the umbrella tightened. Then came the sound, soft, metallic, deliberate. A drawer. Taehyung's eyes widened. He bolted. The kitchen was empty, but the knife drawer was open. A blade. Missing. Jimin's breath caught. Then came another sound, this time upstairs. A thud. A door creaking open. And Yoongi's voice. What the hell? They sprinted. Second floor. Guest room. The door was half open. Taehyung slammed it the rest of the way. And froze. Yoongi stood across the room, shirt half on, confusion on his face. The window was open, curtains flapping in the wind. No one else there. No shadow, no figure, no sign of her. But the air was wrong. Wrong in a way that made Taehyung's skin prickle. He moved to the window, looked down. An alleyway, trash bins. A fire escape that reached just close enough to jump. She was in here, Taehyung said. She was here. Jimin was pale. We didn't even hear her. She didn't want to be heard. Yoongi picked up a folded slip of paper from the bed. This wasn't here before. He read it, eyes narrowing, then handed it to Taehyung. This place was always yours, until you dragged him back into it. She's warning us, Yoongi muttered. No, she's threatening us. Jimin's phone buzzed. One message. He read it aloud. How many more of you have to break before you learn? Taehyung stared at the wall, breathing hard. She's watching. She's still watching. She wants us to fall apart, Yoongi said. From the inside. That's her game. But Taehyung shook his head slowly. No, not anymore. This is more than just her. There's something else behind this. Someone else. She's not doing this alone. Meanwhile, in Jeju, Jungkook sat with the notebook open on the table, flipping through pages he could barely believe. It wasn't just money. It was surveillance. Photos. Not just of him, of BTS, of staff members, producers, even HYBE executives. Conversations were transcribed in chilling, mechanical detail. Then he found it. A blueprint. The dorm building, marked entrances, windows, emergency exits. Red circles on 2 rooms. Taehyung's. Jimin's. He felt the air leave his lungs. He called Taehyung again. This time he answered on the first ring. She had a layout of the dorm, Jungkook said. She's been planning this for months, maybe longer. We know, Taehyung said. She was here tonight. What? She didn't hurt anyone, just made her presence known. That's not a warning, Jungkook said. That's a test. She's waiting to see if we run. Taehyung looked around the room at Yoongi and Jimin.
We're not running.
Jungkook's voice was shaky but firm. Then neither am I. I'm done hiding. Back in Seoul, in a penthouse far above the noise of the city, Han So-jin stood in front of a mirror. Her reflection didn't look evil. It looked sad, tired, but her eyes remained steel. You should have stayed gone, she whispered, touching her own face gently. You never belonged in that world anyway. Behind her, the man from the warehouse stepped out of the shadows. His suit was pressed, his voice quiet and sharp. They're close. I know, she said. Let them get closer. They've already connected you to the accounts. And if they release everything, she turned to face him, fire in her eyes. Then we bury them first. The man nodded. We've got one more piece, he said, the one they still don't know about. Jungkook's phone? No. Then what? He reached into a folder and pulled out a printed document, a birth certificate, Taehyung's real name, his family details, and something else. Adoption papers. Seo-jin smiled faintly. So that's the skeleton we'll use. The man hesitated. You're crossing into something you can't come back from. She walked past him. I crossed that the day they made him choose them over me. Back at the dorm, Taehyung sat on his bed, flipping through his old journal. He didn't remember writing the name Seo-jin as many times as he had. Every page, every entry, from the last 2 years. Like a ghost had been haunting him long before she returned. Then he found something tucked between 2 pages. A photograph. Her, younger, holding a baby. Behind her stood someone familiar. His heart dropped. It wasn't Jungkook. It was his own father. Taehyung stared at the photo like it was a crack in his entire identity. His phone buzzed again. This time, the message came with a video. It opened to Seojin's voice, soft and venomous. "You warned him once, but you never asked why I chose him in the first place. Now you'll find out." And the screen cut to black. Taehyung stared at the black screen long after the video ended, breath shallow, chest caving in. Her voice still clung to the walls of his room like smoke after fire, soft and poisonous, wrapping itself around the name that had shattered him in silence. "You never asked why I chose him. Now you'll find out." His hand trembled as he touched the edge of the photo again. Seojin. Younger, but unmistakable. And the man behind her no longer just familiar. It was him. Taehyung's father. Younger, but wearing that same distant gaze he'd carried all his life. Taehyung flipped the photo over. There was writing, Jeju Island, summer 2000. He said he'd choose me this time. He heard his own breath escape like a hiss. Everything went quiet inside him. No heartbeat, no thought, just that single sentence repeating. What the hell did that mean? Who was she to his father? And why had she chosen Jungkook? The door creaked behind him. Jimin stood there, his voice low. "You haven't come downstairs. You okay?" Taehyung turned slowly. "She knows something about my family." Jimin's eyes widened. "What?" "I think she knew my father. A long time ago. Before us. Before all of this." Jimin stepped inside. What are you saying, Tae?" "I don't know," Taehyung swallowed. "But I think she's been watching me longer than she's watched Jungkook. Maybe she used him to get to me." Jimin sat on the bed, trying to steady his breathing. "You don't think she's your—" "No," Taehyung said immediately. "No. But she knew him, and she hated him. I can see it in her eyes in this photo. And the message she sent, she wanted me to see this. Wanted me to question everything." "Then maybe that's the game," Jimin said. "She's trying to pull us apart from the inside. We've already been fractured. Now she's digging deeper, going after blood." Taehyung stood. "I need to talk to my father." "Will he answer?" "He will now." The next morning, Taehyung flew alone to Daegu. He hadn't been back in months, not since the last argument with his father about the life he chose and the family he left behind. He arrived at the old house, his breath fogging in the early morning air. He knocked 3 times. His father answered in a faded gray sweater, older than Taehyung remembered, eyes narrowed in confusion. "You're here," he said slowly. Taehyung held up the photo. "Tell me about her." His father's face turned to stone. "I don't know who that is." "Don't lie to me." Silence. Then he stepped aside. "Come in." They sat in the living room, a quiet space layered with old photos and the scent of boiling barley tea. Taehyung placed the photo on the table between them. His father stared at it for a long time. "She was 17 when I met her," he said finally. "I was 29, married, working in Jeju for a short-term construction project. She worked at a cafe. We started talking. I thought it was harmless." Taehyung's voice was cold. "Was it?" "No." A beat of silence. "She told me she loved me. Told me she'd wait. I told her it was a mistake. That I had a wife, a son." Taehyung leaned in. "And then she threatened to ruin me. Sent letters to your mother. Photos. She even came to Daegu once. Said she was going to tell everyone unless I left your mom for her. But you didn't." "No," his father said bitterly. "And she disappeared after that. I never saw her again." Taehyung's voice was a whisper. "She didn't disappear." His father looked up. "She stayed. She waited. And now she's back. And she's not just coming for you. She's coming for me and for Jungkook. She married him." His father went pale. "What?" "She's been planning this for years." His father's mouth opened and closed. Then he stood abruptly, walking to the window, gripping the curtain. "I thought she was just a girl," he said. "I didn't think—" "She's not just a girl," Taehyung said darkly. "She's a weapon, and I need to know something else." He placed the adoption paper on the table. His father turned. "You signed this. I wasn't even told I was adopted." A long pause. Then, finally, it was sealed. "Your mother didn't want you to know. You were born premature. The hospital said you wouldn't survive. Your birth mother, she was gone. No name, no trace. And then there you were, alone." Taehyung's heart thudded. So, I'm not your biological son. No. Is it her? His father flinched. I don't know, he said. I swear I don't know. Taehyung stood, rage burning under his skin. You gave me a lie to live in. And now she's feeding it back to me as truth. She's manipulating you. Maybe. Or maybe you did that first. Taehyung turned and left. Back in Seoul, Jungkook met with Yoongi and Namjoon in a hotel parking garage, the kind where cameras never quite work and nobody asks questions. I cracked the drive, Yoongi said, holding up a USB. She used layered encryption, but there's video, audio, phone taps. Jungkook's hands tightened. Of me? Of you, of us, of staff members, executives, and conversations that should not exist outside of those rooms. Namjoon added, there's a contract between Seojin and a holding company. The name on the paper isn't hers, but the signature. It matches an old ID we found linked to her from 10 years ago. She's been using identities like weapons. She's not after money, Jungkook said. Not anymore. No. Yoongi agreed. She's after legacy. Jungkook's voice was raw. Then we expose her. All of her. Not yet, Namjoon said. We need the full picture. A phone buzzed. It was Taehyung. Jungkook answered. I think she's my mother, Taehyung said, voice shaking. Jungkook froze. What? She knew my father. She hated him. He said she disappeared. And I found adoption papers. I was born with no name, no trace, just gone. And then I was his. Hyung. And now she's back. With you. With us. Like this was always her plan. Jungkook's voice was hollow. Then she's been hunting both of us, Taehyung whispered. She's trying to finish what she started. And for the first time, Jungkook understood. This wasn't just a personal vendetta. This was generational, deep-rooted, vicious. A war of blood and betrayal. And now, with everything out in the open, they had no choice but to burn down the house she built. Together, the city of Seoul pulsed beneath them, cold and glittering. From the rooftop of the undisclosed hotel where they had taken refuge, Jungkook and Taehyung stood side by side, the wind cutting through their jackets like knives. For a long time, neither said a word. Taehyung was the first to break the silence. Do you remember that night in Tokyo? He asked, voice low, nearly lost in the hum of distant traffic. You said you'd never lie to me, not even if the world demanded it. Jungkook's jaw clenched. I remember, but you did. I know. And now, Taehyung added, eyes still trained on the skyline. We both live in the aftermath. Jungkook turned to him. I didn't know she had anything to do with you, with your family. I swear to God if I had... But you didn't ask, Taehyung snapped, finally looking at him. You didn't want to know, because she made you feel safe. And when something feels like home, we don't question it even when it's on fire. Jungkook nodded slowly, accepting the words like bruises. You're right. Taehyung let out a bitter laugh. I'm not trying to be. Below, cars crawled through the streets like nervous blood cells in a city infected with secrets. Jungkook pulled the USB drive from his pocket. This has more than I ever wanted to see, he said. Recordings of me talking about you, about the group, private stuff, things that were never meant to be heard again. She saved it all. Why? Taehyung whispered. Why keep so much of us if she planned to destroy everything? Jungkook turned the drive over in his hands, the metal cold and small in his palm. Because she never wanted to erase us. She wanted to own us. Yoongi appeared behind them, footsteps barely audible. He didn't speak right away, just stood with them for a moment, eyes scanning the horizon like a soldier. Then he handed Taehyung a manila envelope. It's not just her, he said. There's a company in Busan registered under a different name, but it's her handwriting on the formation documents, and someone else signed off on them, the man from the warehouse. Taehyung opened the file. Inside were copies of forged birth certificates, bank transfers, communications between Seojin and executives from a now-defunct entertainment firm. Blackmail, Yoongi continued, on several levels. She's been buying silence for years, and when that didn't work, she manufactured it. She created an entire network just to keep us under her thumb, Jungkook said, stunned. I thought I married someone who needed me. She was building a goddamn empire. Not an empire, Taehyung said, eyes fixed on the page. A revenge arc. Jimin and Namjoon joined them shortly after. The moment they stepped into the circle, something shifted, an old familiarity laced with a kind of exhaustion that only comes from fighting ghosts. "We can't keep this quiet much longer," Namjoon said. "Dispatch is sniffing. Some fan accounts already picked up on the photo of Taehyung's father. If this leaks without context, we control the narrative," Yoongi cut in. "We take it public, on our own terms. Confess what we must. Reveal only what's necessary, but we don't let her finish the story." "And the rest?" Jimin asked, voice heavy. "The adoption. The connections. The fact that she might be Taehyung's mother?" Taehyung looked away, lips pressed into a hard line. "That part doesn't leave this rooftop. Not until I say it does." Everyone nodded. Jungkook reached out, hesitating for a second before placing a hand on Taehyung's shoulder. "I don't know how to fix what I broke." "You can't," Taehyung said. "But you can help me tear down what she built." That night, under the hush of Midnight Soul, Jungkook sent a message to his legal team. "Prepare a press statement. I'll speak live. No edits." Meanwhile, Seojin stood alone in a hotel suite laced with shadows. She watched the skyline too, but not for comfort, for control. The man from the warehouse stood behind her again. This time, he didn't wear a suit. This time, he held a gun. Small, clean, polished. "You'll need this," he said. She didn't turn. "I don't kill. I never have." He tilted his head. "You just make people wish they were dead," she smiled slightly. "Words are more permanent than bullets. There's a chance they'll go public. There's a certainty they will," she corrected. "And when they do, they'll think they've exposed me." The man waited. "But they don't know the real secret," she said, finally turning to face him. "Because they haven't asked the only question that matters." He frowned. "Which is?" She stepped closer. "Why did I choose Jungkook over Taehyung?" He looked confused. "Because he was easier to manipulate." She smiled wider. "No, because he wasn't mine." Back on the rooftop, Jungkook sat on the ledge, feet dangling over the edge like he didn't care how high they were. Taehyung sat beside him, arms on his knees, staring at nothing. "What if she's your mother?" Jungkook finally asked. "I don't know. Would it change anything?" Taehyung exhaled slowly. "It would explain everything." "Would it make it better?" "No," Taehyung said. "But at least it would make it make sense." They sat there until the sky began to shift, the black of night slowly softening into a bleak, dusty gray. "Tomorrow," Jungkook said, "I go on camera. I admit what I did, not because I owe it to the world, but because I owe it to us." Taehyung nodded. "And I'll be watching." Jungkook looked at him, not from the crowd, from beside you. Taehyung smiled faintly. "Good." Jungkook's voice broke slightly. "You still believe in me?" Taehyung didn't answer. He just leaned forward, whispering one sentence against the rising wind. "We survive this not because we deserve to, but because she doesn't deserve to win." And in that moment, the stage was set. The reckoning would come. And this time, they wouldn't run from the fire. They would walk straight into it together. The studio lights were hotter than Jungkook remembered. They weren't the lights from a concert stage. No cheering crowd, no music to catch him if he slipped. Just sterile silence, a red blinking camera, and the raw, suffocating weight of confession. His palms were damp. The paper in his hand, his prepared statement, trembled slightly, but he wouldn't read it. He had made the decision the night before. No scripts, no rehearsed apologies, just truth. A timer counted down on the monitor in front of him. 3, 2, 1. The host gave a small nod. "We're live." Jungkook exhaled. "My name is Jeon Jungkook. I'm a member of BTS. And for the past 2 years, I've kept something from all of you." A pause. His throat tightened. He looked straight into the camera lens. "I got married in secret. To a woman who, at the time, I believed knew the part of me that wasn't an idol. Who saw me as just a person. I kept it from my brothers, from the company, from the fans. Because I was afraid that if I let you see me completely, if I let you see what I'd chosen, you'd walk away." The chat feed was already flooding. Hearts. Rage. Questions. It continued. "But the woman I married, she wasn't who I thought. She had secrets, deep ones, ones that eventually became mine to carry. She was connected to things I didn't understand, people, money, surveillance. She recorded us, manipulated us. Me. He blinked back, the heat rising in his eyes, and when I finally saw it, I was already buried too deep. So I stayed quiet. I protected her. I defended her. And in doing that, I betrayed the people I love most. He looked down for a moment, breathing through the ache in his chest. Taehyung, Jimin, Namjoon, yoongijungkook, Hoseok, Jin. I can't undo the damage, but I can take responsibility for it. The camera zoomed slightly. His jaw tightened. I allowed someone dangerous into our world, and now we are all at risk. But this is not just about me. She didn't just hurt me. She hurt all of us. She lied to us, and she's still out there. He leaned forward. So I'm telling you this, not as an idol, not as a performer, but as a man who's finally done hiding. His voice lowered. Steadier. I'm pressing charges. I've submitted every file we recovered to the authorities. There is a full investigation underway, and her name, her real name, will be made public very soon. She's not who you think. She's not who I thought. Another pause. He glanced at the host, who looked stunned, uncertain whether to speak. But before that happens, Jungkook said, I want you to hear it from me. I was fooled. I was weak, but I'm no longer silent, and I won't let her control a second more of my life. He stood, the chair scraping gently. The host tried to recover. Jungkook, see, does this mean? But he cut in, voice calm. It means the performance is over. He walked off camera, heart pounding. Outside the studio, Taehyung was waiting. The door clicked open. Their eyes met. No words, just a nod, and a silent understanding between two men who had nearly lost each other, saved only by the wreckage of one woman's war. They walked down the hall together as chaos erupted online. The internet was melting. Headlines screamed. Speculation ignited. Fans cried. Reporters refreshed every feed like addicts. Inside her private penthouse, Seo-jin watched it all unfold on 3 monitors at once. The host's face, the broadcast replaying, headlines forming faster than she could read them. A glass of wine in her hand, a faint smile on her lips. She didn't look shocked. She looked entertained. The man from the warehouse stepped into the room, holding a phone. He filed the suit. I know, she said. He gave them everything. I wanted him to, she replied, sipping slowly. He frowned. Why? She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. Because if he goes public, I can stop pretending. I can burn. He blinked. And you want that? No, she said. I want to take them with me. A knock came at the door. Seo-jin raised an eyebrow. The man drew his gun again, stepped toward the entrance. But the knock came again. 3 sharp, deliberate taps. When the door opened, it was a woman, sharp suit, government ID. You're Seo-jin, correct? She said. Yes. We need you to come with us. For what? The warehouse man asked. Financial fraud, identity theft, wiretapping, attempted extortion, unlawful surveillance. The man stepped forward. You don't have jurisdiction. The woman smiled. We do now. 2 more agents appeared from the elevator, weapons drawn. Seo-jin calmly placed the glass down. I'll come. But as she passed the man from the warehouse, she leaned in. Plan B, she whispered. Activate it. She was escorted out. Back at the BTS dorm, Jungkook sat on the couch, staring at the phone in his hand. The press was everywhere. News cycles looping his confession. International media outlets dissecting his words. Dispatch had confirmed the name Han Seo-jin. Photos were surfacing. Flight logs. Bank accounts. She was real, and now exposed. The silence in the dorm was surreal. Then Taehyung said quietly, She won't go down easily. She's already gone, Jungkook muttered. No, Yoongi said, entering from the hallway. She's just getting started. Jimin followed, holding a folder. She had backups, Jimin said. A plan B. What kind? Jungkook asked. Yoongi placed a new USB on the table. One that shows footage of our dorm. From before you met her. Everyone froze. Taehyung slowly sat up. What do you mean before? Jimin opened the folder. She's been watching us for 5 years. At least. Namjoon appeared last, holding a letter. This was delivered to the company today. No sender, No return address. He handed it to Jungkook. Jungkook opened it, read it silently. His hands went cold. What does it say? Taehyung asked. Jungkook read aloud. You think the show ends when the curtain falls. But I wrote the script, and there's still one act left. The blood act. Signed, your mother's ghost. No one spoke. No one breathed. And far from the city, in a private bunker deep beneath the earth, a screen lit up. CCTV footage of the BTS dorm. Live. Someone was still watching. And the final act hadn't even begun. The silence inside the dorm wasn't peace. It was pressure. The kind that built slowly in your chest, second by second, breath by breath, until even air became something sharp. Jungkook paced the length of the room, gripping the letter so hard the paper wrinkled between his fingers. The words echoed in his head like a curse looped on repeat. The blood act. Signed, your mother's ghost? Taehyung sat at the edge of the kitchen counter, not blinking. He stared at the USB Jimin had placed beside the rice cooker like it was a live grenade. Jimin leaned against the fridge, arms folded, as if his body alone could stop the past from swallowing them whole. Namjoon stood by the window, curtains pulled back just enough to let him track the blinking red light from the rooftop across the street. The light hadn't stopped blinking in hours. Yoongi was the one who finally moved. He plugged in the USB to the secured laptop and dragged the file open without a word. No one breathed. The footage was grainy, static dusted. The camera angle was high, like it had been placed in a corner of a ceiling. Jungkook's bedroom. But the bed was different. The walls still had posters. From years ago. His old room. Pre-debut. That realization was ice in Jungkook's spine. The timestamp read March 17, 2017 2:14 a.m. There was someone sleeping on the bed him. Barely 17. Thin, exhausted, wrapped in a blanket like a child hiding from the world. And then, movement. A shadow slipped into the frame. Not through the door, through the window. Gloved hands. A covered face. Silent. Calculated. They moved through the room like they already knew it. Like they'd been there before. Yoongi paused the video. Zoomed in. The person placed a small black object behind the poster on the wall. A lens. She planted the first camera in 2017, Yoongi said quietly. Namjoon's voice was low. And we never knew. Jungkook stepped back from the screen like it burned him. She was watching before she ever spoke to me. Before she even introduced herself. She chose you long before she said your name, Taehyung said, eyes unreadable. Just like she chose me. But why us? Jimin asked, voice raw. Why not the others? Why just you two? Yoongi didn't answer. He was opening the second file. This time, it was the dorm kitchen. 2018. Early morning. Taehyung, making coffee. Alone. He was humming something. Still in his pajamas. Innocent. Unaware. And then again that figure. Just outside the window. A camera flash. Quick. Subtle. The video cut out. She was documenting everything, Jimin whispered. Like a collector. She was creating leverage, Namjoon said. Building a library of blackmail. She didn't just want one of us. She wanted a reason to control all of us. She got it, Jungkook muttered. She used me to bring the whole group under her shadow. Taehyung's jaw tightened. Then we bring her into the light. Before anyone could respond, Jin walked into the room, face pale. You guys need to see this, he said, holding up his phone. It was a live broadcast, a pirated stream, not on any public platform, but the kind of deep web link only circulated in private circles. On screen was a room, dimly lit. Sterile. Cold. Seo Jin, sitting at a metal table, hands clasped in front of her, and a camera fixed on her like it was about to film her final confession. A robotic female voice spoke from off-screen. State your name. She smiled. Han Seo Jin. But that's not the name you want. Then what is? Her eyes flicked to the camera. Cold. Calculated. The name you've been afraid of since this started. The name they tried to erase. She leaned forward. Lee Min-chae. Jungkook's stomach dropped. That name. He had heard that name once on a file Taehyung had shown him weeks ago. A file Yoongi recovered from an encrypted database. Lee Min-chae. Classified. Affiliated with Orchid. Asset status: undisclosed, terminated. She wasn't just someone with a grudge. She was a former asset, a ghost used by higher forces to do things no one wanted to sign off on. Jin blinked. "What the hell is Orchid?" Yoongi answered before anyone else could. It was a shadow division inside a government-backed psychological warfare program. Shut down after a whistleblower exposed unauthorized behavioral experiments. Jimin's voice cracked. "Experiment? They recruited young women from troubled backgrounds," Yoongi said. "They trained them to manipulate, infiltrate, destroy reputations, social engineering, political sabotage. Think of it like a weaponized version of charm, control through intimacy." Taehyung swallowed. "And she was one of them. She was the best," Yoongi whispered. Back on the screen, Seo Jin Lee Min-chae was smiling. "They called me a mistake," she said, "but I was the prototype." The voice off camera asked, "What is your goal now?" She tilted her head. "To prove I still work." And then, calmly, she lifted her wrist. A tattoo. A small orchid flower. With a number. Tse. The screen went black. And all across Seoul, Hybe's emergency server systems began crashing. Firewalls failed. Private emails leaked. Project files deleted. A virus raced through every digital vein. Yoongi's laptop shut down. Fried. Burned out. Smoke curling from the vents. "She triggered it," he muttered. "She was the failsafe. She sacrificed herself," Taehyung said, horror creeping into his voice. "Not to disappear, but to erase everything else." Jungkook stared at his reflection in the blank TV screen. She had always planned to be the ending, but now, the story no longer belonged to her. Taehyung touched his shoulder. "We end this. Our way." Jungkook nodded. "Then we start with Orchid." And in the darkness of the bunker where Seojin had once sat, another figure watched the screen go black. Someone with the same tattoo. A man. Asset 1. And he was already on his way to Seoul. The rain fell hard over Seoul, streaking the windows of the dorm like tears from a sky that knew too much. Inside, the air was thick with silence, a suffocating kind, as if even sound was afraid to move. Everyone had seen the stream. Everyone had heard her name. Lee Min-chae, Orchid Asset 7. Taehyung sat on the edge of the couch, his elbows on his knees, hands pressed together in front of his face. He hadn't spoken since the broadcast ended. Jungkook stood near the window, watching the city dissolve in the downpour. His reflection stared back at him, empty and guilt-ridden. He touched the glass like it might answer something, but it didn't. Yoongi had dismantled 3 hard drives in the last hour. His fingers blackened with dust and burnt plastic. Useless now. Fried by the virus Min-chae had left behind. Jin entered the room with Namjoon and Hoseok, their faces grim. The company was in full lockdown. Hybe servers were compromised. Contracts were being renegotiated in a panic. Sponsors were pulling deals. And Army, divided and desperate, was digging deeper than ever. "She wanted this," Yoongi said, still seated on the floor, surrounded by the dead tech. "She knew if she went down, she'd become legend. She knew people would start looking for the others." Namjoon nodded. "And we found one." He placed a photo on the table. A man, tall, late 30s maybe, cold eyes, clean cut, a scar under his left cheekbone. Taehyung picked it up. "Who is he?" "His name was redacted from most of Orchid's records," Namjoon said. "But we traced the image through a surveillance shot at Incheon Airport this morning. Facial recognition hit. He arrived under the name Daniel Hwang. And he has the same tattoo?" Jimin added quietly. "Asset 1. Yoongi looked up sharply. "The first prototype." Jungkook turned from the window. "She activated him. Just before she was taken." "She let herself be taken," Taehyung muttered, eyes still on the photo. "She's not locked up. She's waiting for him to finish the job," Yoongi said. "Or worse, pick up where she left off." Hoseok walked forward, unfolding a map. He pointed to 3 locations circled in red. These were the Orchid safe houses used during the final phase of their operation before the program was shut down. All decommissioned, supposedly. But one of them, Jin interrupted, was reactivated a week ago. A burst of untraceable IP traffic. Shortwave encrypted messages. Jungkook squinted. "Which one?" Hoseok tapped the center of the map. "Suwon." Taehyung stood, grabbing his jacket. Then we go. Namjoon held up a hand. We're not trained for this. We weren't trained for any of this, Taehyung snapped. But we're still here. Yoongi stood too. I'll go with him. Jungkook crossed the room, picking up the photo of Daniel Hwang. If he's anything like her, we won't have time to wait for law enforcement. We confront him first. Or get killed, Jimin said softly. I think that's already part of the script, Taehyung replied. That night, beneath the cover of storm clouds, Yoongi and Taehyung drove south to Suwon. The safe house was buried behind a wall of decaying storage units tucked between warehouses and abandoned delivery trucks. There were no lights, no cameras, just a single door, half rusted, with a keypad long worn down. Taehyung looked at Yoongi. You sure you want to do this? Yoongi stared at the door. I came here to break things, not to survive them. Taehyung smiled faintly. Good. He pressed his palm to the old keypad. It buzzed red, locked. Yoongi knelt beside it, pulled a USB device from his jacket, and jimmied it into the wiring. A few seconds later, the light turned green. The door creaked open. The hallway inside was dim, low-ceilinged. The kind of place where secrets didn't echo, they were absorbed into the walls. They moved slowly, room by room, until they reached the back, a small office, and there, sitting in a steel chair, sipping a glass of whiskey like the storm hadn't touched him at all, Daniel Hwang. He didn't look surprised to see them. I wondered how long it would take, he said. Taehyung stepped forward. Why are you here? Daniel smiled. Because Min Chae left me something. He opened a drawer, pulled out a flash drive, black, plain, but marked with the orchid insignia. Yoongi tensed. What is that? The rest of the program, Daniel said calmly. Everything she didn't say. Everything she couldn't say. Taehyung stepped closer. Then give it to us. Daniel tilted his head. You think she was your mother? Taehyung's breath caught. You think she found you out of obsession, out of guilt. Daniel stood. But it wasn't guilt. It was design. You were part of her experiment. No, she watched you grow. She watched Jungkook shine. Two boys built by contrast. One with blood, one without. She wanted to see which one would survive the pressure of perfection. She destroyed us, Taehyung said, his voice shaking. That wasn't science. That was cruelty. Daniel nodded. And cruelty is the fastest path to truth. He tossed the flash drive on the table. You want it? Then take it. But know this, once you open it, you don't get to go back to being idols. Yoongi picked it up. None of us are idols anymore, he said. A gunshot shattered the silence. The window behind them exploded. Sniper fire. Daniel dove to the floor. Taehyung pulled Yoongi down. Another shot. Closer. Outside, someone was trying to kill them, and it wasn't Daniel. A voice echoed through the building, distorted from hidden speakers. I told you the final act was blood. Min Chae, you think you've won, but I never played to win. I played to finish. Explosions rocked the foundation. The safe house began to shake. Taehyung grabbed the flash drive, yanked Yoongi to his feet. Daniel didn't move. I'm staying, he said calmly. This is my tomb. You'll be here, Taehyung shouted. I died the day Orchid branded me. And as the building crumbled around them, Yoongi and Taehyung ran. Behind them, the man who started it all burned in silence. But they had the flash drive, and now they had the truth. The problem was what came next. Telling the world that their fame was built on a lie someone else designed, and deciding whether to survive it or destroy it. The flash drive sat in the middle of the table like a cursed artifact. No one touched it. It was early morning when Yoongi and Taehyung returned to the dorm, soaked in smoke, dust, and the kind of silence that only people who'd run from fire carried. No one asked what had happened yet. They didn't need to. The tension in the air was louder than any siren. Jungkook looked at the drive, then at them. Is it real? Yoongi sat down slowly, his hands bruised, his voice dry. It's real. Whatever's on it, it's everything. Namjoon stood behind the kitchen island, arms crossed. Then we open it. Today. No, Taehyung said. We open it in front of the world. Jin looked up from where he was reading the latest headlines. You want to broadcast it? Yes, Taehyung replied. This isn't just about us anymore. Orchid didn't just ruin our lives, they've manipulated the industry. Politicians, journalists, anyone who ever stood too close to the spotlight. If we keep it private, they'll erase it. Again. Yoongi leaned back, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. Daniel said Orchid's been dormant, but not dead. He said we were experiments. He didn't mean just her. He meant them. Jimin spoke up from the couch, his voice softer than usual. If we go public, they'll come for us. We won't just be exposing Seojin, we'll be turning ourselves into targets. Jungkook stepped forward. We already are. Namjoon looked around the room. So we decide. Together. Silence fell. Then Jungkook said, We show them. Taehyung nodded. We show them. Young didn't move, but he didn't object. Jimin swallowed, then said, Let's finish what she started, but in our own way. Jin let out a breath. Then we do it fast. Before they shut us down. The team moved quickly. Hoseok called in a favor with an old broadcast technician he'd once worked with on a solo project. Yoongi ran the drive through 2 layers of encryption blockers to make sure it didn't trigger another virus. Namjoon coordinated with their legal team, preparing a preemptive statement that could delay injunctions for at least 24 hours. They would have 1 shot, 1 window, 1 broadcast. Meanwhile, Jungkook disappeared into the studio. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. When he returned, he handed Taehyung a flash drive of his own. What is this? Taehyung asked. A song, Jungkook said. One I wrote. The night she left. Taehyung looked him in the eye. Is it a goodbye? No, Jungkook replied. It's a confession. At exactly 11 p.m., the live broadcast began. No sponsors, no camera crew, no stage lighting. Just 7 men, seated around a single table, the room dim and real. The flash drive sat at the center. Taehyung spoke first. You've known us as performers, as idols, as friends, as brothers. But tonight, we're not speaking as any of those things. Tonight, we speak as people who were lied to, controlled, watched, and now, finally, free. Jungkook leaned forward. 2 years ago, I married a woman who changed the course of my life. I thought she loved me. I thought I made a choice. But the truth is I was chosen. Long before I ever knew her name, she was part of something bigger, something darker. Namjoon took over. We were targets, part of a program called Orchid, a project designed to manipulate, surveil, and influence public figures in the name of psychological control. What you're about to see is evidence of that. Yoongi plugged in the drive. The screen behind them flickered to life. Video after video, timestamps, locations, conversations recorded without consent, meetings with political figures, payouts, journalists bribed, executives blackmailed, idol contracts altered under false pretenses, lives ruined. And then the final file, a recording of Seojin herself. In a therapy session, her voice calm and sharp. You asked if I regret it. I regret nothing. I was made to manipulate. I was trained to seduce, to mimic, to destroy. Love was never the point. Obedience was. She paused, then said, They don't know what they are without us. That's what makes them easy. The screen went black, and the room sat in stunned silence. Then Jungkook stood, pulling a mic closer. There are people in power who let this happen, who funded it, who buried it, and now they'll come for us. But we're not afraid, because this what you just saw is the truth. Taehyung stepped beside him, and the truth belongs to everyone now. The live stream ended. They stood in silence, 7 shadows beneath a flickering overhead light. Phones exploded. News agencies scrambled. Hybe servers were down within the hour, but the video was everywhere mirrored, reposted, embedded in every platform. The truth moved faster than the people who wanted to kill it. And somewhere deep inside a glass office tower, a man in a tailored suit picked up a phone. They activated the truth, he said. A woman's voice replied on the other end. Then it's time we bury the rest. He leaned back in his chair, staring at a photo on his desk, a younger version of himself. And beside him, Lee Min-chae. The game wasn't over, because Orchid never planted 1 seed. It planted hundreds. And now they were blooming. The city was burning, not with fire, but with eyes. Every screen, every phone, every whisper, and every cafe, subway, boardroom, and bedroom, it was all them now. Not BTS, not idols, not legends. Just men sitting around a table with a truth too heavy to belong to entertainment. The broadcast had gone global. Over 200 million live views and counting. Headlines exploded in real time, and governments who'd pretended not to remember Orchid suddenly remembered enough to panic. The footage was undeniable. The signatures, the confessions, the voices, they belonged to real people with real power. And now, their masks were slipping. But inside the dorm, none of that felt like victory. It felt like blood waiting to fall. Jungkook sat at the kitchen table, hands shaking so subtly even he didn't notice. His phone was face down, buzzing every few seconds with messages he wouldn't read. Taehyung stood by the window, staring at the empty street. There were no fans waiting outside anymore. No cameras, no cheers. Just silence. They had given the world everything, and now the world didn't know what to do with it. Yoongi poured whiskey into a mug, ignoring the glass entirely. He drank without speaking. Jimin's voice broke the silence. So, what now? Namjoon looked up from his laptop. Lawyers, lawsuits, arrests, retaliation. We've only opened the door. They haven't even walked through it yet. Jin entered the room with an envelope in his hand. We got this an hour ago. He tossed it onto the table. No return address. Taehyung opened it. His hands were steadier than they should have been. Inside was a list. Names. Each name handwritten in ink, clean and precise. Lee Min-chae, Daniel Hwang. 5 members of HYBE's old executive team. 2 current ministers in the South Korean government. And at the bottom, Kim Taehyung, Jeon Jungkook. Silence fell again. They're calling us assets now, Yoongi said darkly. They want to rewrite the story, pretend we were part of it, trained, controlled. We were children, Taehyung snapped. Jungkook stood slowly. They're going to try to erase what we said, reframe it, weaponize it. Namjoon looked up. So we hit first. Taehyung turned to him. How? We keep telling the story. And not just through the media. We make it impossible for them to clean it up. Yoongi nodded. We release everything. The full Orchid archive. Every last file. Jin frowned. That could backfire. There are people in those files who didn't know. Victims. Other targets. Then we redact names, Namjoon said. Blur faces. But we don't stop. Jimin's voice shook. What if we don't survive this? No one answered right away. Then Taehyung said, if we go down, at least the lie goes down with us. Jungkook walked over to the studio. He returned with another flash drive. The song, he said. We release it with the footage. Taehyung hesitated. It's not safe. Nothing is. The next day, the second wave began. BTS's official YouTube channel uploaded a black screen video titled, The Garden, a Confession. Jungkook's voice, raw and vulnerable, filled the silence. She told me I was chosen, that I was special, but I wasn't chosen for my voice, or my face, or even my past. I was chosen because I was easy. Soft piano chords layered beneath the voice. The melody was slow, wounded, easy to control, easy to isolate, easy to love. Then came the chorus. Jungkook singing with a voice barely above a whisper. This garden you built was never meant to bloom. You watered it with silence and fed it with fear. But I still grew, despite you, not because of you. The screen faded in slowly. Footage of rehearsals, dorm life, laughter, late-night ramen, Taehyung sleeping with a book on his face, Yoongi grumbling over spilled coffee, Jimin dancing alone in the mirror, Jin cooking for 6, Hoseok writing lyrics on his phone at 3 a.m., Namjoon crying quietly during a concert. They were never soldiers, just boys. Then came the final shot, a photo of Lee Min-chae, with the caption, "This is not revenge, this is memory, and memory doesn't ask for permission to survive." Within hours, the video had 400 million views. People cried, others raged. The world fractured. And just when it seemed the chaos might begin to settle, an explosion tore through a government office in Seoul. 2 officials died. One of them had signed Orchid's funding. An anonymous manifesto was released minutes later, posted to every major dark web forum, and translated into 26 languages. If you take down one flower, the garden still grows. You prune the branches, you forgot the roots. Jungkook dropped the phone in his hand. It's starting. Yoongi turned on the TV. Every channel was a new disaster. Arrests, resignations, protests. Orchid wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a virus now, leaking into every system, every country. Jimin whispered, "We opened a door to something we don't understand." Namjoon spoke firm. "But we opened it with truth." Jin added, "Now we survive it." But no one knew what survival looked like anymore. Because somewhere across the ocean, beneath another name, in another city, a woman with an orchid tattoo poured herself a drink, smiling as she watched their faces on the screen. And behind her, dozens of people sat in rows, watching, waiting, listening. Orchid wasn't dead. It had only changed its name. And BTS had just become the face of a war they never meant to start. By the time night fell again over Seoul, the city no longer felt like home. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy, soaked with tension, like the world was collectively holding its breath. Sirens became rhythm. Helicopters hovered like insects over government buildings. Protesters had gathered outside HYBE headquarters with signs not of adoration, but accusation. Inside the dorm, no one was asleep. The air reeked of coffee, sweat, and exhaustion. They hadn't spoken in an hour. Not because they didn't want to, but because none of them knew what to say anymore. Taehyung stood by the window, back straight, but his fingers twitching at his side like static. Jungkook was seated cross-legged on the floor, elbows on his knees, staring blankly at a cracked phone screen. Jimin was in the kitchen scrubbing a dish that had been clean for 10 minutes. Hoseok sat at the table, eyes red but dry, mouthing silent phrases like a prayer he no longer believed in. Jin leaned against the wall, arms crossed, face pale. And Yoongi, for once, looked nervous. Not tense, not cold, but genuinely afraid. Namjoon paced, not erratically, but methodically, measured steps like he was calculating what percentage of the situation could still be salvaged. No one spoke until the news broke. Yoongi's phone lit up first, then Jin's, then all of theirs at once. It was a notification that stopped the world. Breaking, unconfirms. Orchid program operated globally South Korea among 6 governments under immediate review. Taehyung whispered, "Oh my God." Jungkook looked up slowly, lips parting like he couldn't form words. Namjoon grabbed the remote, turned on the news. Every network had interrupted programming. Footage from decades ago was being aired, blurred faces, coded documents, grainy videos of military and corporate personnel in secret rooms. Survivors, actual survivors, were stepping forward. Not just idols. Civilians, doctors, athletes, artists, even children. And one by one, the world began to see what Orchid really was. It wasn't just manipulation. It was engineering. "I was 13 when they took me," said one woman in the video. "They taught me how to speak like a diplomat and lie like a politician. My name changed 3 times before I turned 18. I was meant to be someone's perfect second wife. I ran, but they always knew where I was. I was a journalist," said a man in his 40s. "They hired me, fed me fake stories, made me write exposés that ruined lives. I didn't know until it was too late. I was in love with someone who never really existed," another voice said. "She was assigned to me. I found her personnel file under my bed." Each voice was a nail in the coffin. But whose coffin? None of them were sure. Taehyung walked over to the TV and turned the volume down. "I think we just lit the match that burns down everything." Namjoon finally stopped pacing. "We didn't burn it. It was always burning. We just showed everyone the fire." A silence hung for a moment. Then Jungkook said, "You think the other members of Orchid are going to come for us?" "They already are," Yoongi said quietly. He handed Namjoon a tablet. There was a message, not public, sent directly through a secure line only 3 people were supposed to have access to. It was a video. Taehyung clicked play. A woman appeared, pale, blonde, early 30s, dressed in a black coat. "I'm not here to threaten you," she said calmly. "I'm here to explain what your truth has cost." Behind her, the camera shifted. There were bodies. Security guards. 2 journalists. Dead. In your crusade for truth, you exposed people who were never meant to survive the spotlight. People who have families. People who were under contract, just like you. She leaned forward. "You want a war? You've already lost. Because Orchid was never about control. It was about survival. The people you exposed were just the surface. We are what's underneath. And we don't need to be seen to survive. We only need to be remembered. The video ended. Everyone stared at the screen. Jimin spoke, voice trembling. How do we fight something that doesn't care if it's known? That wants to be hunted? Taehyung ran a hand through his hair.
We don't fight them head on. Not anymore. We shift.
Jungkook looked up. Shift how? We make it unprofitable to follow Orchid's path. Taehyung said, suddenly alive with clarity. We change the system. We expose the method, not just the names. We make it so no company, no government, no group can ever justify training children to become weapons of influence again. Namjoon nodded slowly. Education, infrastructure, reform. We go global. We work with international agencies. Yoongi added. And we keep releasing data. Piece by piece. Never all at once. Never enough to stop us with one bullet. Jin smiled faintly. Turn the war into a conversation they can't silence. Jungkook stood. Then we start now. Taehyung looked at him. Are you ready to never be idols again? Jungkook answered with no hesitation. We already became something else the moment she chose us. That night, they drafted their manifesto. Together. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't poetic. It was raw and direct. We were lied to. We were trained to lie to you. We are not perfect. We are not innocent. But we are awake. And that's more dangerous than anything they planned for. They signed it with their real names and uploaded it to every government, human rights organization, and media outlet in the world. Within 12 hours, protesters outside Hybe started singing again. Not fan chants, but something new, something fractured, but unified. Hope. And just as it seemed like the world might begin to heal, a private plane landed in Tokyo. A man stepped off. He wore gloves, a long coat. His eyes were cold and unreadable. On his wrist, a small tattoo. Bah. He was carrying a locked case, and inside, it was a list of names. The last of Orchid, the ones who had never been exposed. And at the very bottom, BTS, not just the victims anymore, now the targets. And the storm hadn't even begun. The last morning came without warning. The city of Seoul wore a strange silence, unnatural. Like the world had taken a breath it forgot to release. The clouds were low and unmoving, hanging like an omen. Inside the dorm, it was still dark. No one had slept. Not really. Even the coffee machine sat unused. Taehyung sat alone in the living room, his fingers tapping a slow rhythm against his knee. He hadn't touched his phone, not since the email arrived at 4:03 a.m. No subject line, no sender, no body text, just an attachment. A photo of him and Jungkook, taken last night from a rooftop across the street. The timestamp, 3:56 a.m. He heard soft steps behind him. Jungkook appeared from the hallway, barefoot, hoodie half-zipped. His eyes were hollow, but awake. Not tired, just drained. She's still watching, isn't she? Jungkook asked. Taehyung nodded. Not her anymore. Him. As at 8, Jungkook dropped into the chair beside him. We never found his real name? Yoongi answered from the kitchen, appearing like a ghost. No official records. Not even inside the Orchid drive. He's the last one, Taehyung said. Maybe, Yoongi replied. Or maybe he's just the next. By noon, the dorm was locked down. Security was upgraded. Doors were coded. The agency had finally woken up to the fact that this wasn't a scandal, it was a war. But it was too late to stop what was already unraveling. Namjoon, Jin, Hoseok, and Jimin sat together in the back room, reviewing the final documents. A legal statement to be handed directly to the UN's newly formed Orchid Review Committee. A comprehensive archive of audio, video, contracts, locations, asset codes, psychological profiles, and timeline breakdowns. They called it the memory file. But they all knew what it really was. A goodbye. We can't protect everyone, Jin said, but we can protect them, Hoseok added, pointing to the fan letters spread across the table. The ones who trusted us, believed in us. We don't need to be idols anymore, Jimin said, voice breaking. We just need to be the reason this stops happening. Namjoon looked up. Then we hand it over in person. You think they'll let us speak? Hoseok asked. They have to, Namjoon replied. Because if they don't, they're complicit. Jin finished. That night, the 7 of them dressed in black. Not for mourning, but for clarity. No stage clothes, no cameras. Just the weight of the truth on their shoulders. They arrived at the UN compound in Seoul at 7:47 p.m. The committee was already waiting. Cameras, journalists, protesters on both sides of the gates, some cheering, others screaming for silence. Inside the hall, the committee sat cold and rigid. 20 chairs, 15 countries. 6 were directly implicated in the Orchid project. A woman stepped forward. American. Late 50s. Calm. We've reviewed the initial evidence, she said. You've shaken the world. But before we go further, you need to understand that making this public has endangered far more than just yourselves. Namjoon stepped forward, holding the memory file. We know, and we accept the consequences. We can't promise protection, she added. We're not asking for protection, Yoongi said. We're asking for history to finally tell the truth. She looked at each of them, then gestured toward the table. Then show us. Jungkook plugged the drive in. What played wasn't just files. It was a reckoning. Clips of their childhoods, their early contracts, moments in interviews where their eyes said what their mouths were trained not to, moments with Seo Jin touches that lingered too long, words repeated in patterns, language that had been coached to sound natural, then recordings from inside Orchid, training footage, psychological testing, a clip of Asset 1 during interrogation, and then the voice. Asset 8. BTS was never a threat. They were proof that the human heart could be studied, influenced, pushed, and broken. We studied them because the world loved them, and love is the most dangerous thing a system can't control. Silence followed. The screen turned black. In the committee room, the stillness was suffocating. Then, the woman in charge stood. Thank you. We'll enter it into the record. No, Taehyung said quietly. You don't get to hide this behind closed doors again. We're not hiding it. Then read it, he interrupted. Read the names out loud. She looked at him. Something in her eyes shifted. The power dynamic cracked. Then she picked up the list. And read the names. Ministers, executives, former Orchid handlers, and at the end, Lee Min-chae, Daniel Hwang, Asset 8, real name unknown, still at large. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with fear. The moment they stepped outside the building, reporters swarmed. Microphones, cameras, shouts. Do you feel betrayed by your company? Do you still consider yourselves BTS? Is the music industry safe for young talent anymore? And then, do you regret telling the truth? Taehyung looked directly at the reporter. I regret not telling it sooner. Back at the dorm, the windows had been shattered. Someone had broken in. Not to steal, but to leave a message. Spray painted across the living room wall. You were never just experiments. You were the control group. And now, we begin the real test. No signature. But next to the words, a new symbol. Not an orchid. A violet. Jungkook stared at it. What does it mean? Yoongi swallowed hard. It means it's not over. The next morning, a new file was leaked anonymously. Footage, audio, data from another group, another set of children, another experiment. This one didn't end in survival. This one ended in silence. And for the first time in years, the world realized BTS weren't just survivors. They were witnesses. And the real question wasn't whether they would survive the next attack. It was whether the world was finally ready to listen. Because behind the collapse of fame, behind the masks and the microphones, behind the choreography and the bright lights, there had always been something watching. And now it wanted to speak. There was no music, no lights, no screaming crowd. Just 7 chairs on an empty soundstage, dust-covered, surrounded by forgotten cables and unused microphones. The kind of room where legends used to be made. Now, it was quiet, reverent. A live broadcast had been scheduled for exactly 11 p.m., 1 year to the day since Jungkook sat in front of the world and told the truth for the first time. 1 year since the world cracked open. 1 year since Orchid began to die. Or evolve. And tonight was the last time BTS would speak together in public. Not as idols, not as victims, but as men who had lived through something no one was supposed to survive. The camera flicked on. Taehyung sat in the middle, flanked by Namjoon and Jungkook. To his right, Jin and Yoongi. To his left, Jimin and Hoseok. No stylists, no script. Just them. Namjoon spoke first. Tonight isn't an explanation. We've given those. It isn't an apology. We've made those too. Tonight is something else. It's closure. Jungkook nodded. A year ago, we were afraid of what would happen if the world saw us clearly. Now we know. They saw us all along. They were just waiting for us to stop hiding. Jin looked at the camera, expression serious. Orchid wasn't a secret organization. It was a mirror. One that shows how power behaves when no one's watching. Taehyung leaned forward. She told me once that the public only cares about stories with endings. But I don't think this story needs one. Yoongi added, this story was never ours alone. It belongs to the kids who never got out, the artists who disappeared, the names erased, the ones whose silence was bought or broken. Jimin's voice trembled when he said, we're still here because we chose to be. But not everyone had that choice. Hoseok smiled faintly. And we owe them our voices, our lives, our survival. Namjoon stood, slowly walking toward the center of the camera frame. We'll never perform together again. The words hit like a soft bomb. No tears. No dramatic pause. Just finality. Not out of defeat, but purpose, he continued. Not because we stopped loving music, but because there's something more important now. He looked back at the others. Each one stood beside him, shoulder to shoulder. Jungkook said, we will be working with international human rights organizations. We're founding a trust to support survivors of psychological warfare, media abuse, and forced labor in the entertainment industry. This trust will be global, unbiased, protected, Taehyung added, and funded by the only people who never left our side, our fans. Jimin took a breath. This isn't goodbye. It's a new kind of beginning for all of us. Yoongi stepped forward last. If we'd stayed silent, maybe none of this would have happened. Maybe we'd still be perfect, safe, loved by the illusion. But silence is its own kind of violence. The screen began to fade to black, but Jungkook's voice returned, softer, alone. She told me the truth wouldn't set me free, that it would bury me. And maybe it did, but at least now, I know whose name is on my grave, and it's mine. One final frame appeared. 7 silhouettes walking away from the stage. From the lights. From each other. No camera followed them. No fanfare. Just a final line written in white over black. We were never just theirs. We were always ours. The broadcast ended. And for a moment, the internet was silent. Not in mourning, but in awe. Because somehow, they had told a story that wasn't about fame or scandal or betrayal. It was about truth. And the courage to live with it. That night, Seoul slept with a strange kind of peace. And somewhere far from the city, in a mountain house with no signal, Kim Taehyung stood outside, hands in his coat pocket, watching the stars alone. Jungkook's voice echoed from a small radio beside him, an unreleased demo playing quietly, soft, and unfinished. There were no more interviews, no more scandals, no more Orchid. Just the quiet knowledge that they had survived it. Together. And that was enough. Because not every story ends with a bang. Some end in silence and still echo forever.